Okay, so we are live tonight. So welcome everybody. I'm so happy to see you all here. Welcome to our Sunday Goal Achievement Mastermind. I'm Mike DeLuca. I will be your host. And this meeting is being brought to you by my company, Integrative Wellness and Development, LLC. I must go through the required small print of letting you know that everything here is, my thoughts and the thoughts of Integrated Wellness and Development LLC. It is all here for the purpose of education, sharing ideas, sharing some tips and things that could make your life a little easier, a little better. We are here to educate, inspire, sometimes perspire you, but we are never here to diagnose, treat, or prevent any condition or illness. We make no claims that the information we are going to share with you is going to make you instant zillionaires, have you flying through the air, levitating, or find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. We don't make any of those promises. I do promise tonight's discussion will be interesting. There'll be some good things that you could take and put in your life. But the rest of it is really up to you and what you do with it. We're here to share. So with that, I'm going to share. I'm going to share my PowerPoint with you, and we will get started with tonight's session. So I click lots of buttons, and then I click more buttons, and then all of a sudden there's something on the screen that looks good, and there we are. Yes, here we are. So the topic for tonight, and many of you are familiar with the four agreements. Our topic tonight is how the way of the four agreements intersects with the road of the spiritual warrior. Interesting topic, yes? Couple of stories behind this. Many of you are familiar with Don Miguel Ruiz's best-selling book, The Four Agreements. It has been, used not only for leading a wonderful and happy life, but I've worked in many companies who use it as a foundation for interpersonal relationships, getting along with people, and basically living a happier, more productive life. I also came into contact with some discussions about how the principles are in line with the principles of the spiritual warrior. I've had some wonderful experiences with spiritual warriors throughout my life. I had the chance when I was very, very young to meet a Native American shaman while I was working at a defense manufacturing company in the summer of my college days. And he really helped awaken in me an understanding of the love and the beauty of the indigenous cultures around the world, and also that we can walk the path of the warrior, but the spiritual warrior, and not necessarily the path of a military warrior. A warrior by any name is someone who shows the courage to pursue defending their beliefs and pursuing the walk of a righteous and honorable path. And so I thought tonight, wow, these two things really come together. And so I wanted to share with you my thoughts on this and how I was putting the puzzle pieces that were coming in front of me together. And I thought it'd make a good discussion, so we'll just jump right in here. So here is number one of the four agreements. Be impeccable with your word. And the corresponding point of the way of the spiritual warrior was always have a prayerful intent. All positive things are here for you to know. So this first principle, be impeccable with your word, and have a positive, prayerful intent with what you say and what you promise and what you do. And it really highlights this point about how honesty, character, and trustworthiness with others and ourselves is so important, right? To living a balanced, productive life, and for the spiritual warrior's pursuit of wisdom. Also, think, act, and live with honorable thoughts, honorable words, and honorable deeds. If we are to be impeccable with our word, that also brings up the old adage, your word is your bond, right? So it's an important opportunity for us to really respect our word, respect the promises we make, whether that's to each other as individuals or the promises we make as a business or someone providing some sort of service, right? Whether that service is to heal, to feed, to entertain, to inspire, to educate, whatever the service is we provide, to do it with honor, to meet our promises, right? This is, unfortunately, in the world we live in today, it's a very, very much forgotten, important agreement, right? All agreements will fall useless if at the very beginning there is not the agreement that we are impeccable with our word, whether we are the service provider or the service receiver. All life, all relationship, all interchange is based on fulfilling a promise made. And so it's important to think, act, live, work with honorable thoughts, words, and deeds, and to honor our word. I think you can clearly see how those two paths merge here, you know, being impeccable with your word and always having that higher sense of honor about what you're saying, about what you're saying you're going to do, and about meaning what you say, and about meeting the promises you make. Number two, the second agreement, don't take things personally. I think this is so important. In the road of the spiritual warrior, don't take things personally, translated into develop compassion by walking a mile in the other person's shoe, to understand there's so much behind what is on the surface of what we experience, right? To move beyond the concept of being the victim, right? And to understand there is something higher going on in every experience we have. If we take the time to develop compassion by looking to see what's going on in the other person who might be saying or doing something to us that on the surface we might react to and judge as being harmful, right? Being negative. Before we react, work with compassion and take a beat, right? Look for where is the possible gift of experience, of learning, of understanding, and evolving in this situation before we go nuclear, right? Before we explode and react. Don't take everything personally. Understand that there are deeper causes to every action taken by others, right? There is a backstory to every surface situation. And sometimes if we take the time before reacting to find out just why is this happening? Why is this person saying or doing this? What's really behind it? We might find the backstory is one that requires us to actually have compassion for that individual. Because most people do negative and harmful acts, usually because there is a great deal of fear or a great deal of pain in their background. And this is their way of kind of striking back at the world. And we just happen to be in the line of fire, right? So it's important to understand there are deeper causes to every action by others. And then it's important to understand the importance of a little bit of humility, because guess what? It's not always all about you. It's not always all about me, right? The universe is not revolving around us all the time. And everybody has their stuff, right? Everybody has their stuff. So we can choose to experience, analyze, look to understand before we react out of anger and a desire for retribution and revenge or righteousness. Some very wise people have often said there is no such thing as righteous anger, right? There is no such thing as righteous revenge. And when you look to take revenge, make sure you dig 2 graves. Because when we seek revenge, we suffer as much as the individual we are taking revenge on. So again, don't take things so personal. Don't take things personally. Develop compassion and the old adage, walk a mile in the other person's shoe before you judge, and certainly before you react. This too is a very, very valuable agreement and a very, very valuable clue to living a more spiritual, a more valiant, a more courageous, a more harmonious life. Number 3, don't make assumptions. No, we all know the old story of when you assume, right? I'm not going to repeat it, but when we assume without knowing all the details, we usually wind up wearing more of the goop on us. So on the road to spiritual warriorship, the principle is observe. Observe and try to understand all the details of the experience from the viewpoint of your higher self. Interesting, huh? Not your physical reaction, right? Not your emotional reaction, and not necessarily from patterns that are mental patterns that are triggered by the experience and cause you to react without having all the evidence and really seeing all of the different angles to the situation. So much of this is pointing to take a breath, stop. Remember what we were taught when we were little kids? We were getting ready to cross the street to go to school, right? What would they tell us? Stop, look, listen. Stop, look, listen, and try to get the big picture from your higher self. Not crossing the street with your nose in your cell phone and then reacting to what happens when you're really not present and you really don't have the whole picture. Or you're getting it secondhand or third hand or fourth hand or backhand, whatever it is, you're not getting it through direct experience from your higher self. So again, a very wise moment here. Don't make assumptions. And as the spiritual warrior would do, observe it all from your higher self and seek to have a higher understanding before reacting. And then the last agreement, number 4. Always do your best, but don't be attached to the results. Way of the Spiritual Warrior talks about this principle of develop patience. Develop patience from learning the importance of delayed gratification. We live in a world of instant results, right? Type into Google or ChatGPT and instantly you're provided with answers and information, right? Right? Put your credit card in the vending machine and instantly there is the meal, right? Click on an app and instantly a car shows up to take you somewhere, right? And we forget about the importance of having patience, right? Now, when we say always do your best, don't be attached to the results, there's a couple of angles to that, right? If we see that there might not be the results around the corner or the results we anticipated before doing the thing we promised to do or we're responsible for doing, we still have the responsibility, the obligation, and the opportunity to do our best, right? If nobody showed up on these Sunday masterminds, I would still deliver them the best I can. I would prepare for them the best I can. I would give you my heart. I would give you everything I have, right? Because you deserve it, number one. And because that's the promise I made to you and myself. And we need to understand the importance of sometimes it's necessary to wait. Do what you need to do and keep doing it. And eventually, the right things will come to us if we do the right things. We begin to understand there is honor in working slowly and steadily to do our best and give the highest level of value, right? It's important for us to recognize that we are publicly recognized for the preparation and work that we do in private. All of that preparation, all the rehearsing, all of the research, all of the organization that's done behind the scenes is what creates the product that the public recognizes, but they don't see all the hours and hours and days and months and years of preparation and practice. They'll never see that, but we see it, and we know the importance of doing it, right? And so that fourth point, no matter what, no matter who shows up, it's important that we show up 100%. And whatever we do, we don't judge ourselves, our performance, our audience, or anything else by the immediate results, right? We don't judge it by the immediate results. Now, I'm not saying that we strive to just get by because that's good enough, right? I'm not saying that. And I'm also not saying that we shouldn't try and want to have a successful experience in everything we do. But it's important to do our best for the sake of the honor of doing our best, of stretching ourselves, of working hard and understanding through hard work, through smart work, we grow and we're able to give more value when we put our whole selves into the preparation and into the delivery of whatever it is we're doing. So again, there's a really clear intersection between always doing your best and not being attached to the results, and develop the patience from learning the importance of delayed gratification. The honor of doing something with all yourself invested in it. Right? Okay. With that, I'd love to open it up to comments. I know many of you have had experiences with the information I've just shared, and you might have something you want to share about how that's worked for you. If not, let me hear from you about what you think about what we just shared, what was most useful for you, what you've been applying in your life. Let's hear from you. You were really the stars of the show here. Jocelyn, did you want to share something?
Yeah, you saw me before I raised my hand. Yes, years ago, the one I'd like to address is the one about don't make assumption. And years ago, I was in a situation at work with what I perceive as a difficult manager. And what happened is that that manager had given me the lead on a very important project where I didn't have all the expertise to do, but I accepted it to help the group. So we went along with it, and I was in charge of a whole group of consultants. And as we were hitting the end of the contract on the Friday, she called everybody. The day that I wasn't in the office, she called everybody back because she was nervous of not having reached the result. And she called all the consultants back without telling me. And she organized a meeting and over the weekend. So they were all upset about it. And I wasn't aware until I came in the office on Monday and someone said to me, hey, you want to know what happened when you were gone? So of course I was upset. And when I came back at the office, I just told her about, I was angry, and I told her about not accepting what she had done, that she had kind of affected my reputation by not consulting with me before, not just even informing me. So anyway, I just went along with that. And then I asked for another meeting before we would keep on finishing the project. And she agreed. So in between the meeting, I went for a walk with a friend, and I was again telling him all about the bad that had happened and how it affected me. And he said, why are you so angry? And I went like, I'm not angry. I'm just describing you the situation. He said, why are you so angry? So I put my head down and I went like, Jocelyn, why are you so angry? And then the answer came that was, had been asked many times when I was a young girl to do things that were beyond my capacity, and trying to give the best and not having the result for that or the appreciation for that. So something about reaction of the past was creating kind of a knee-jerk reaction in this situation. So I decided, okay, what am I going to do with that now that I kind of realized that she's just pushed a button? So I did a Naikan exercise, which is a Japanese exercise that you talked about not too long ago. And in the Naikan, there's 3 questions. And the 3 principles are, what have I received from that person? What have I given to that person during the time I worked for her? And what problem have I caused to that person? So here I am doing the exercise. All right. And that helped me pull back a little bit from the situation. So the next meeting, I come in there and I say to her, first thing, first, thank you for offering me this job. In a time of difficult, where I was on sick leave, you came and gave me a job in the middle of Christmas time that really, really supported me. So thank you for having done that. Thank you for having paid all of my studies at the university for the time I've been with you. And I said, well, so she started looking at me strange, like she expected more of what she had gotten the first round. So here I was. And so I said, you know what? I guess I may not be the best person to do that job. I did my best for the team, and I think we came to a good result. However, this is what I could, it's just about finished, and you're going to need a good person, project manager with you. So maybe you want to consider that. And in the meantime, I would appreciate that you give me reference, because if I am to look for another job. So the thing is, I had realized during the exercise that this project had cost her $500,000, and there was some reason to be nervous at the end that maybe the end result was not exactly at the level that she needed to have it done. I didn't say that to her. However, I started recognizing all the good that I received from her. What happened as a result is that she gave me the other job, and I continued, and someone noticed me, and eventually because of that, I eventually moved on into becoming an expert and a consultant. And if I would have just be left with my first impression and perception, I would have probably not even be here tonight to talk to you, and not being teaching university and nothing, because I would have just sabotaged the whole thing. So I guess, but sometimes it's really difficult when one of our buttons is being pushed on something really sensitive. That's when we have to push back and use, like in my case, I use a Japanese exercise, which is a reflective exercise, which allowed me to see other aspects that I couldn't see because I was blind to the other element and just stuck into me, myself, and I suppose, at that time. And I must say that, yes, the manager was still not an easy manager to work with, but taking it that way, I got a full participation, collaboration, and we ended the project together.
Fantastic. Yeah, beautiful example of looking at what's, from that higher perspective of, where's the pony in here? Where's the gift in this experience? What can I learn and gain from? And then also taking the time to use gratitude, right? To find before I explode, what are the things here that I can be grateful for? Right, before I start looking for revenge or, looking to air my anger. Because again, in the end, we find out there's really not much, credibility to righteous anger. Does it really do any good? I had a story I encountered meeting someone some years ago. They shared this story of this experience about assumptions and prejudging, and he shared the story of he had been estranged from his family for many years. He left home at a very young age and lost touch with his father because he and his father had just a really tough relationship. And he found out that his father had passed away suddenly, and so he made his way across the country and went to the funeral. And during the funeral, an old friend of the family, who was sort of his father's best friend, had known this young man since he was, a baby. And so he said, "How are you doing?" The man said to the son, "So how are you doing with this?" And the son said, "I have real mixed feelings." He said, "I really didn't want to come here. My father and I didn't get along. I actually hated him when I was growing up because he always was so angry and he always created such an atmosphere of tension and disruption. We never had a single meal with the family in peace. He would always strike up an argument. He would always get up and storm out while the rest of us ate, and he would not come back until we were all back and asleep in bed." And so his father's best friend just nodded his head and started to get some tears in his eyes. And he said, "I know exactly what you're talking about." He said, "Your father told me before he passed about some of the many things he felt really bad about. And he explained to me that before you left home, when you were growing up, the family was very poor, and he was having a lot of difficulty making enough money to keep a roof over the family's head and enough food for everyone. So you probably didn't notice, but your father waited till you were all served food. And what he would do is he would be drinking water and sometimes something else, but mostly water. And that's when he would get angry and he would get aggressive and he'd just storm out of the room. What you didn't see is he'd storm out of the room to go outside, fall to the ground and cry in the pain of hunger because he hadn't eaten for several meals in order for there to be enough food for you and your siblings. And this carried on day after day, week after week, month after month. He was just barely surviving. And the pain of his hunger was so bad that it caused him to be angry and aggressive. But he rather storm out and having you hate him than having you see him embarrassed about not being able to provide enough income to feed the entire family and himself. So he was willing to suffer rather than suffer the embarrassment of not being able to meet his responsibility. And of course, the young man just broke, his heart just broke when he understood that it wasn't that his father was a mean, nasty, angry person. His father loved his family and was willing to sacrifice his health and sacrifice the pain, experience the pain. So we really don't understand, what people do and why. And we really can't appreciate it unless we take the time and look for all of the different angles. And rather than react, to ask, from our higher self, what's behind this? What could be behind this? Because as I said, behind most situations where people create a great negativity or pain or harm, there's a tremendous amount of anger, a tremendous amount of fear, insecurity, right? And possibly mirroring the things that were done to them. And it becomes a pattern that they can't break out of. So I just thought I'd share that with you. Okay, someone else who would like to share their understandings of these points we've made, what they found valuable, a story in your life that might connect with that.
Mhm.
Okay, if you want to unmute yourself, then you're welcome to share. Andy, can you unmute? You're still muted. Need to.
Great. Great. I was just thinking, Mike, how rewarding and how grateful that I am that I have discovered there is a higher self. And that is who I truly am based upon all the experiences and events and circumstances and people that I have met, and how that has all contributed to a greater understanding of the true nature of who I am. And so this is particularly appropriate when I'm thinking about don't take things personally, because that's not about who you really are, and don't make assumptions, because who you truly are is constantly developing. I'm becoming that on a daily basis, so I don't have to assume I am or I'm not. I can just recognize that I'm in the process of being it and recognizing it, and do the best. And I find that the best is really being done anytime that I choose to recognize not only my higher self, but a greater perspective in what it is that I'm being granted by, again, all of the people in my life, but all the opportunities for me to take another step forward and to be able to integrate who I am into everything that I do. So it's just, we talk about spirituality being the basis, the foundation, it certainly is for my life, that, and then in doing that, that the spiritual principles of acceptance and tolerance and understanding, and patience, all come to the forefront continuously and grant me a greater understanding and recognition of who that higher self is.
So beautifully said, Randy. Thank you. Yeah. Recognizing our higher self every day is a gift. It's a gift to ourselves. It's a gift to the world when we strive to make the effort to discover what is that. And when I've connected with my higher self, there's living proof that that exists in everybody else. It exists in me, it exists in everybody else. And if it exists in everybody else, it needs to be recognized and honored, right? The old greeting in the Hindu religion and of people in that part of Asia, namaste, right? The highest in me honors the highest in you. The divine in me recognizes and honors the divine in you. Right? Unfortunately, that can become, as rote as, hey, how you doing? As you're walking past someone and you don't even wait to hear what they say, hey, how are you? Do you really care? Right? And if they told you, would you really care? But then, from your higher self, my highest self recognizes the highest in you, and I honor it. I honor it. If we all did that, our lives would change. The world would change a little bit. Jocelyn, you have your hand up again.
Yes.
All right.
It's because that made me think of another situation where I struggled for months with a new supervisor who wanted, it was a mediator and I was ombudsman, and she wanted everyone to be mediators. So she came to me saying, no more ombudsman, and I know I was doing an excellent job there. So the tense started building between us. The point I want to get to is to when you're in the middle of the hot water, how do you access this higher self? And in this situation, it got so tense that she went to HR department and I went to union, I went to other ombudsmen it went for months, and we were just about to really destroy both of our career. So at one point, one day she's coming in and I'm thinking, oh my, what's going to be now, So I decided, okay, enough of that. We're at the limit of what we've done on this one, and it had a bad effect on people around us. I knew it, and it's not exactly what an ombudsman is supposed to be. So I closed my door and I turned my chair towards the wall and I asked my inner guide, inner inspiration voice, what is to be done here? Because now we're just about to explode. And what I heard was, go and just make her smile. I said, a smile? You want me to smile to her? Come on, come on. But I said myself, well, okay, so far it's always been good, so I'll try it. So I opened the door, I went to her office, and I didn't even know what to say to her. But I just got in the door with a big smile. And she was at her computer. She turned and looked at me. And then she was so surprised. She said, oh, I said, I think I find an information that you may find interesting. Would you mind if I bring it to you? Then she went with a big smile. No, she said, sure. So I went and picked up the thing, got back into her office, and we started talking like nothing had ever happened. I just couldn't believe what was happening. She had time, I think she had found it difficult as well, but I couldn't believe that a smile that showed some kind of openness would totally stop the flow of something that had been building up negative for so long. And I tend to think that that was coming maybe from a previous lifetime where we both had our head cut into another quarrel that we were in, and we're just about to repeat the same scene. But to my amazement, responding to that guidance and saying, just smile. And it worked.
You bring up another important point, Jocelyn. That is, it's important that we are working on a daily basis to get connected to our higher self and maintain the connection with our higher self every day behind the scenes. What we don't want to have happen is be in the hot water and then suddenly have to take out the manual and figure out, how do I connect with my higher self? Because it's too late when you're in the hot water. If you haven't been practicing it, if we haven't been working from that place as our natural place every day, right? Because that's where the rubber meets the road, is when suddenly life happens and you are in the trenches and are being required to live your truth and live your higher principles. But there isn't time to say, oh, wait a minute, let me take out the book, let me practice my exercises, and I'll come back in about 30 minutes or 30 days, It doesn't work that way. So it's important that we're walking the walk and we are practicing behind the scenes. We remember, we're recognized, for what we do that people don't see behind the scenes, because when it's time and we're in the hot water, it should come out naturally, because we are living from that place naturally, because we put in the work to come from that special place, that higher place. And that higher place becomes our natural place, our starting point, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. Great pointing, Jocelyn. Thank you for reminding us about that. Who else? We have a few minutes. Who else? Meg.
I was just thinking how the first one, be impeccable with your word, is so important, and I have a really hard time with this one, because not about being impeccable with your word when dealing with someone else in business or anything else, but also important is to be impeccable with your word to yourself, which
Yes.
I have a hard time with sometimes.
Yes.
And how that is also connected. I mean, all four of these agreements are connected, but how that first one is connected to the last one, always do your best. Because sometimes doing your best, it goes into detail in the book, which I'm sure some of you have read. If you're not feeling well on a particular day, doing your best is going to be different from a day when you're feeling great. And you have to be kind to yourself when you've done your best and it doesn't go well for whatever reason, like the thing that you were working on doesn't go that well. So that kind of relates back to the first one of being impeccable with your word and being kind to yourself, basically. That's all I'm
No, really, really important point, Meg. Thank you so much. And that is, keeping our word with ourselves, and also understanding that it's important to be kind and take care of ourselves and honor and respect ourselves. And the promises we make ourselves to do and to be are as important as the promises we make to others. And we will experience the ramifications of what happens when we don't. And when that happens, we are less able to bring the quality of value to others if we're not bringing that value to ourselves.
Mhm.
And I've experienced this firsthand. When you're really committed to doing things for other people and helping people help other people and helping people, and the days, the hours, the weeks go by, and well, I'll skip this that I was going to do for me today because I have to do this, and I'll skip that, and before you know it, suddenly you need a lot of attention. And then you have to stop, and you have to make up for that lost time and do the things you need to do to take care of yourself. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can make the time to care for ourselves, to meet our responsibilities to ourselves, to honor ourselves, and to meet the promises we make about our goals for our health, our happiness, our spiritual growth. Because when we fulfill the promise to ourselves, we are more capable of fulfilling the promises to all of life. And we all have something very important to give to life, to give to others, to contribute to the world. But we won't be able to if we haven't taken care of ourselves at every level, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, right? It's really important. So thank you, Meg. Real important. Appreciate that. Okay, we have time for one more comment, question, observation.
Mhm. It's interesting, Mike, when we have reference the higher self, and very often I found that we show up as who we really are, and unbeknownst to ourselves, that individual and their higher self is now in a position to be able to meet and to recognize you and your higher self.
Yeah.
And that is where we are truly connecting with each other. Where that perspective now we are sharing with them and they with us is exactly the place that we have been brought. And for not only them, but certainly for us. And for me on a daily basis, and I take the time and I allow, you know, the best part of who I am, the true nature of who I am, shall we say, to have an opportunity to express itself, to reconnect itself, and to allow me to inhabit that and it with me. And so the people that I will be meeting, I want to make sure they're not disappointed in being able to connect with that higher self within me, but as a reflection and a recognition of the higher self within them.
So important. Thank you, Randy. Yeah, when we take the time to see and appreciate that in ourselves and others, magic happens. I had the honor of performing a wedding last weekend for a couple. The bride was a first-generation immigrant to the United States from Zambia, and her husband, you know, was a Caucasian American, and they were both the sweetest couple, one of the sweetest couples I've ever met. And you know, I was standing there next to the groom, who was really nervous, and I was just kind of chatting with him to relax him as we were waiting for, you know, the bride to be to come around and make her entrance. And so I asked him, I said, "How did you two meet?" And he said, "We met on the internet. I saw her on the internet." And I looked at her picture and said, "Oh, I hope one day I could meet this person. I really would love to get to know this person just by looking at her," right? He knew. And it was just so beautiful. And the wedding was filled with people from both cultures, right? There were all kinds of people from different parts of Africa. There are all kinds of people from different parts of the United States. There were a number of interracial couples. And for that day, there was no race, there was no color, there was no nationality. It was all about the celebration of love, of commitment, of unity, of togetherness, of you know, compassion, right? And the celebration was amazing, right? And there was celebration from both cultures, you know, some traditional dance from Zambia with all dressed up in the garb, the beautiful, you know, colors and animal costumes, and the drum beats and the dance and the rituals of presenting gifts to the parents of the groom and the parents of the bride, and to each other, the bride with the groom and the groom with the bride. It just was, I mean, I was looking at that and I was saying, you know, this is such a beautiful example of how, when we focus on love, everything works. You know, when we stop looking at the differences and start looking at the similarities, when we stop looking at distance and start looking at connection, right? When we stop comparing and we start appreciating, right? Magic happens. And that entire day was just a magical day, you know, just a magical day. And I was so grateful As a notary public in the state of Maine, I'm allowed to preside over weddings, and it was a legal ceremony, but we made it something very special together. The words they had to say, the things that I read, the just most importantly, the love they had for each other that spread. It was infectious. Right. And it just spread through the entire group of 200 people. And the joy, it still reverberates as I look at the pictures, on Facebook. You could still feel that love, you could still feel the hope, right? The gratitude of two people who have worked hard to find each other, to love each other, appreciate each other, and to move beyond the differences and embrace the unity, that comes with seeing each other as from the highest, as you said, seeing the highest in another through the highest in yourself. So it's just a beautiful experience, and the food was amazing. The music and the dancing was amazing, right? It was all amazing because it was all full of love and joy and happiness. So if you make any agreement with yourself, and this is what I want to leave you tonight, live your life with love. Make each day an example of your love, your gratitude, right? That you have. Make each day an example of what is possible when we live from our highest self, right? Make the agreement to serve yourself as you serve others. Right? Make the agreement to say and do what you mean and mean what you say and do. Make the agreement to do that. When we make those agreements, we truly are walking the path of the spiritual warrior who is not out to conquer the world. The spiritual warrior is out to conquer their lower self and place on the throne their higher self. They're not there to loot the wealth of the physical world, the material world. The spiritual warrior claims the wealth of the highest world, the inner world, the highest self. The spiritual warrior is not armed with guns and bombs and missiles and planes. The spiritual warrior's armament and shield is made of love and humility and an honest appreciation and seeking of truth and the desire to seed the fields with wisdom, love, and liberation. So I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. Thank you all for your contributions. Great points you made, great stories you shared. Thank you so much. I love coming here, every meeting and sharing. I get excited when I'm reading or seeing a video or talking to people, and I find something that inspires me. It inspires me to share it. When you find something important, you want to share it. So that was my gift to you tonight. So I thank you, and I send you on with your night and your life with all my love and appreciation and gratitude for who you are, for the light that you shine, and for the road you walk as your higher self that really inspires others to do the same. So thank you, and have a good night, and we will see you next time.